Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Fantasy Profit YouTube channel. Today, I'm here to bring you 5 undervalued running backs that you need to be buying in Dynasty right now. These guys have massive upside, they're undervalued, and guys who I think can help you win big money this year.
So let's jump right into player number one. And this one's going to hurt a little bit, guys, and I'll tell you exactly why. RJ Harvey, running back of the Denver Broncos, newly acquired, newly drafted Sean Payton running back. Okay. And the reason why I am hurting about this at the moment is because I have 0 RJ Harvey in Dynasty. And I'll explain a little bit later exactly why and some of the guys that took over him and why I have a ton of FOMO at the moment. But I was a prisoner of the moment. 24 years old, 5 years at UCF, converted QB, blah, 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 blah. Not a great prospect profile, sure. But man, we play in 3-year windows in Dynasty, and especially at the running back position, there is a very small window for these guys. And Sean Payton took him in the top 60. He went out and got his guy. And let's look at the 4 running backs, the 4 highest running backs that were taken by Sean Payton. Mark Ingram, Reggie Bush, Alvin Kamara, and now RJ Harvey. And why that's important? Let's look at this. All these guys at least had a top 6 points per game finish and had numerous top 10 points per game finishes in their careers. Of course, Alvin Kamara has had the infamous multiple legendary seasons and has been one of the best running backs, especially in fantasy, over the last decade. Yeah. I decided to not look at that. Also, the dude has no competition in his backfield. Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, Tyler Beatty, and I guess newly acquired J.K. Dobbins. Sure. Okay. They signed him for, I think, $4, $5, $6 million for 1 year. I'm not worried about him taking away valuable touches away from RJ Harvey. And he's going to have the full role in this offense, and it's going to be full send. Bo Nix going into his second year. Cortland Sutton is about the only weapon they have in the passing game, and I anticipate they are going to run the ball with RJ Harvey. He's going to catch passes out of the backfield and could easily finish as a top 20, maybe even top 15, top 12 points per game running back this year. Easily. And we look at the running back position of 3-year windows. 24 years old, sure, whatever. I don't care. He's going to play out his 4-year contract, all in his prime, with the Denver Broncos, Sean Payton attached to Bo Nix in this offense, and I love it. I don't know why I didn't love it before. I don't know why I decided to take guys like Caleb Johnson over him, okay? I like Caleb Johnson, but he was drafted in the 3rd round, way after RJ Harvey. Maybe not way after him, but after RJ Harvey. The NFL spoke. RJ Harvey was drafted before. There was a couple teams who actually wanted to come up and get RJ Harvey and take him. They missed out. The Broncos got their guy. And man, if you still have a rookie draft right now and you are staring at Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey, Matthew Golden, guys like that, and if you're in a position where you already have a tight end and you don't want to have to worry about Tyler Warren, getting the ball thrown to him by Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, dude, take RJ Harvey. Have him be your running back 2, running back 3 on your team for the next 3-4 years. And just, win that money.
And if you're trying to go and get RJ Harvey, I think it can be quite tricky, but if you can tear down at the same position off of guys like James Cook, who has that contract situation going on, a little scary over there. Chase Brown, we don't know if he's going to be as good as he was last year. Josh Jacobs, who the Packers have an out in his contract every single year in that deal, by the way, that he signed last offseason. If you can get a big tear down and a big plus on top of RJ Harvey for a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who I think has the same exact upside as RJ Harvey if they hit their peak, man, I think you should absolutely do it. And in terms of the wide receiver position, if you want to go cross positionally, I think DK Metcalf, Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams, Zay Flowers, don't hate me, Xavier Worthy, I would do as well. I am not a big Xavier Worthy guy, but if you're a big believer, hold on to him. Hook 'em horns, by the way. But man, if I can go and get RJ Harvey and move off some of these receivers who are non-needle movers, by the way, okay? None of these guys have been massive needle movers. I know they are solid receivers. Some of them are actually very good, all right? But, man, RJ Harvey over the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think could absolutely be a monster. He could have one of these legendary seasons under Sean Payton, okay? It is absolutely in the range of possibilities. He is a very, very good athlete, very explosive, and in this offense with Sean Payton, I would not put it past him whatsoever. And RJ Harvey's a guy you should absolutely be targeting in your rookie drafts. Absolutely should be targeting in Dynasty if you want to get younger. If you want to win this year, absolutely go get RJ Harvey. Player number 2 today, Christian McCaffrey. The legendary fantasy running back Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. You may love him. You may hate him sometimes because he decides to miss, every other season with injury. But man, he can win you a fantasy football league just by himself. He has done this in his career, demolishing everybody in fantasy football that year. He has done this 2 years ago, by the way, and that is 2 more points per game than the RB1 last year, Saquon Barkley, also around the same age as Saquon Barkley. I know in Dynasty we do not love the age 28 when we see it on Christian McCaffrey's profile. I get it. However, we play in 3-year windows, especially with running backs. They have a very short window compared to wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. And last year we just saw Joe Mixon, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, all 28, 29, 30, 31 years old, dominate the position, absolutely crush. Also, he's got a solid contract, okay? I know that 49ers have a potential out next year and maybe after the next couple years, but I don't think the 49ers are going to eat 9-10 million in cap space if Christian McCaffrey is 90% of the player that he has been throughout his entire career. He's still 28 years old. We're seeing guys like James Conner get extensions at 30 years old, 31 years old, like Derrick Henry just got an extension. I would not be worried about Christian McCaffrey, and especially if he's in this offense attached to Brock Purdy, attached to Kyle Shanahan. He's a guy I want everywhere, especially at this price. It can be a little tough to gauge, depending on what kind of league you're in, if guys are higher, lower on Christian McCaffrey, if they're tapped into the redraft side of things and see that he's going about 8th overall and climbing at the moment. I can't stress enough that this is the time to go after guys like CMC, some of these older aging running backs, but especially a guy like CMC who has this massive upside. If you can get him for cheap, if you can go from, a guy like Brian Robinson and a 2nd-round pick and get to CMC, if you can go from David Montgomery and a 3rd-round pick to get to CMC where the upside isn't even close, if maybe you're not super high on a guy like Matthew Golden, maybe this is something I'll do closer to the season. I'm hearing some good reports about CMC, but if you can move off a guy like Matthew Golden and get to CMC, that is free money if McCaffrey plays most of the year. He's a guy who could crush this year and make everybody look silly who was out on him, and it's a guy I am betting on in Dynasty. I don't care how old he is. I know we're ageist when it comes to Dynasty in the community, but CMC is a guy you need to be getting right now, early if you can, and super cheap. He's not that expensive, guys. Go get your money right now. Player 3 today, Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers. And man, what a roller coaster it has been for Panthers running backs over the last 2-3 years. Miles Sanders comes in, gets a bag, sucks. Chuba Hubbard comes in for him. It's pretty productive. They come out last year, take Jonathan Brooks in the 2nd round. Once he's fully healthy last year, comes back. Jonathan Brooks re-tears his ACL. Is going to miss the entirety of this season. And Chuba Hubbard is left last year kind of underlooked. Averages 16.1 points per game, just 0.6 points per game behind the NFL rushing touchdowns leader, James Cook. Finishes ahead in points per game in front of everybody's darling, Chase Brown last year, who I know won quite a few people leagues. And they come out in this draft and take Trevor Etienne. They sign Rico Dowdle, sure. But they extend Chuba Hubbard even before Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL last year. 4 years, $33 million. They show that they want Chuba to be their guy, or Chuba gets the backfield all to himself in 2025 with Brooks out. And the Panthers improve on offense. They take Tet McMillan 8th overall. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but Bryce Young in the second half was great. He took a lot of steps forward. Dave Canales seemed to throw some pixie dust on him, and we saw the Bryce Young that we saw in college. The quarterback that we thought was coming out of Alabama, we saw him in the second half of last year. And I think that in 2025, if this Panthers offense improves even just a little bit more, there is to get to the 17 points per game mark around there and be a top 12 running back if this Panthers offense is humming. But the biggest thing about Chuba Hubbard is his price, man. And I'm going to show you guys a trade that I made for Chuba Hubbard recently. And depending on, how high your league is, how high your league mates are on Chuba Hubbard, you could probably maybe get him for cheap, man. I sent Juwan Jennings, Ray Davis, and a piece away and basically got Chuba Hubbard and a piece back. And a guy I may be targeting, to send away for Chuba Hubbard is a guy like Pearsall. We don't know who Pearsall is. I actually kind of liked Pearsall as a prospect, but we don't know who he is in San Francisco. He's in a crowded wide receiver room with IU coming back, with Juwan Jennings, with Kittle, competing with McCaffrey like we just talked about. And man, I just, I'm absolutely willing to go from Pearsall to Hubbard. And if you can move off a guy like Shakir, maybe. I actually like Shakir as well. He's the Buffalo's wide receiver 1. But if you can get a running back who's going to average possibly 15 plus fantasy points per game and is under contract for the next couple years and has the backfield to himself, I'm doing that all day long. Chuba Hubbard is a guy who's not that expensive and is a guy you can get pretty early on before he possibly rises, and is a guy you want in Dynasty. Player number 4, Bashal Tutin, running back of the Jacksonville Jaguars, taken 104th overall in this past year's draft, is a guy I am huge on. I'm way ahead of consensus on, and I could be crazy this time next year, looking back on it, if this fails. But I'm going to tell you exactly why Bashal Tutin is a guy you need to be targeting. First, Liam Cohen comes in from Tampa Bay just last year. They finish top 3 in total offense, top 3 in points, and we just saw a similar situation last year unfold in Tampa Bay. Rachaad White was the lead running back coming into the year, had a really good year too. Bucky Irving comes in, taken in the 5th round, taken late, not a very good prospect, comes in, takes over the backfield, explodes. Okay? I am making the bet that Bashal Tutin is Liam Cohen's new Bucky Irving. Maybe not quite the same player, maybe not quite as good, but man, Bashal Tutin is exciting. 4.32 speed, a freak athlete, and a guy that James Gladstone, the Jacksonville Jaguars GM, pitched to the team before he even got the job as a GM. He pitched the idea of drafting this guy before he even got the job. That is how high this regime is on Tutin. And ETN, we loved him when he came out. He has lost his luster, man. It's really sad to see. But he has not been good the last 2 years. Not efficient. Tank Bigsby, early down guy, okay. Another guy I don't think anybody is really super high on. And there is a clear path for Bashal Tutin to be the Jaguars' RB1 early or mid-season if things swing his way. You want upside this year? Bashal Tutin is the epitome of upside. He is explosive. He catches passes. He can take any carry to the house. And the Jaguars' offense is an offense you want to bet on this year. Brian Thomas Jr., like we just talked about, newly added Travis Hunter. Trevor Lawrence is very capable as he's shown in the past. And Liam Cohen is a guy who can run a well-oiled machine like we just saw a year ago in Tampa. And he comes in and is looking to do the same thing in Jacksonville. I'm betting big time on Bashal Tutin. If Tutin takes over this backfield, man, there is huge opportunity for him to skyrocket so high up rankings. He could be in the top 10 in running back rankings this year. He could, sneak into the top 8, the top 6. If he explodes like Devon Achane did in his rookie season, he is that type of player. He has that type of upside. So let's look at a trade that I made recently for Bashal Tutin. In this league, I am rebuilding. I am coming off a championship, and I moved Jonathan Taylor, and I got back a 2026 first in Bashal Tutin. I got some first-round pick and liquidity, which I think is pretty much equal to Jonathan Taylor, depending on what kind of position you are in the league. And I got Bashal Tutin on top of it, who I think, if things go his way completely, could pass Jonathan Taylor this time next season in value. And maybe, some different trades you guys can do as well are, moving a guy like Keon Coleman, who I don't think is very good, an older Deebo Samuel, Calvin Ridley, who's in a Tennessee offense that I don't think is very good. And maybe a guy, if you're making a huge bet like I am, if you want to move a guy like Jaden Reed for Bashal Tutin, and maybe if you don't want to go that far, that's fine. But I think Bashal Tutin is very acquirable for his price right now, and is a guy I think you should get early before, he takes off beginning midseason and becomes the guy that Bucky Irving was in Jacksonville. Go get him now. Ladies and gentlemen, player number 5, James Conner, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. Is he just going to put up fantasy points for the rest of his career until he decides to retire? Because it sure looks that way. Over the last 3 seasons, he has put up 15.4, 15.5, and 15.9 fantasy points per game. I mean, that is about as reliable as it gets. And ever since he, made his appearance for the Steelers for Le'Veon Bell years ago, the dude has put up massive fantasy points. And is a guy I'm making the same bet on this year, and who I think is going to do the same exact thing that he did last year as long as he stays healthy. Look, I get the argument. Trey Benson's there, sure. But let's look back at last year. Trey Benson got absolutely no run, despite being a third-round pick. And that's pretty rare for, a young running back to come in who they spent pretty high draft capital on and to not get any run down the stretch, especially from a guy like James Conner, who is older, getting up there. You want to see what the young guys got. But the Cardinals didn't care. They gave all the work to James Conner, all the passing down work, all the goal line work. Kyler was top 5 in check down rate in 2024. And if that stays the same and James Conner has the same workload, James Conner is going to put up massive fantasy points for your team this year and at a super cheap price. Now, like we've been talking about all video at the running back position, I want you to be careful when it comes to paying up for guys this early. However, with James Conner, it's a little different. He's dirt cheap. Literally dirt cheap. You could send single seconds for him. You could send, second and a third, a second and a fourth if you know your team's going to be good. And I would absolutely smash the accept button all day long for those deals. And if I can move off of Joe Mixon, who I think has, the same age curve coming, or, the same timeline of, elite production, and if I can get James Conner plus a second, I'm doing it all day long. And if I can, trade Keon Coleman, who is literally a nothing burger, Stephon Diggs, who's coming off of, an ACL at 31 years old, if I can get off of Shaheed and that awful New Orleans offense, I would do it all day long. James Conner is a guy who's going to put up fantasy points for your team as long as he stays healthy, as long as he doesn't completely fall off a cliff, which I don't anticipate happening this year. He's going to get all the work, all the receiving work, the goal line work, and a pretty good offense. And if Marv takes a leap this year, if Kyler, comes back into form and the Cardinals offense is even better than it was last year, James Conner is only going to go up in fantasy points, and he's going to produce for you all year long. Please go out and get James Conner. Do yourself a favor. Get yourself a good running back 2, maybe a running back 3 if you're in a best ball league and need some depth. Go get him right now. In Dynasty, he's cheap and is a guy you need to absolutely buy if you need some running back production. Thanks again, guys, for watching, and I'm going to be back next time with 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends that are super undervalued in Dynasty. But let me know below. Are these some of the guys that you're buying? Are you selling some of these guys? Let me know down below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again.